హాయ్ హలో వెల్కమ్ ఫ్రెండ్స్. ఈ వీడియోలో వచ్చేసి టైమ్ ఆఫ్ సప్లైకి సంబంధించిన చాప్టర్ రివిజన్ చేద్దాం. ఇందులో ఫస్ట్ ఈ టైమ్ ఆఫ్ సప్లైకి సంబంధించి రిలవెంట్ డెఫినేషన్లో ఫస్ట్ డెఫినేషన్ వచ్చేసి అసోసియేటెడ్ ఎంటర్ప్రైజ్కి మనకి సపరేట్ ఇన్వాయిసెస్కి సంబంధించి ఉంటుంది. సో అసోసియేటెడ్ ఎంటర్ప్రైజ్ మీన్స్ సేమ్ మీనింగ్ హ్యాస్ అసైన్ ఇన్ సెక్షన్ 92A ఏవైతే చెప్పినారో వాళ్ళు. దట్ ఈస్ బ్రాడ్లీ అన్ అసోసియేటెడ్ ఎంటర్ప్రైజ్ ఇన్ రిలేషన్ టు ఎనీ అనదర్ ఎంటర్ప్రైజ్ మీన్స్ అన్ అనదర్ ఎంటర్ప్రైజ్ విచ్ participates directly or indirectly through one or more intermediaries in management or control or capital or other enterprises. So associated enterprise means next here invoice or tax invoice means tax invoice referred under section 31. We will discuss about that section 31. Next goods means all kind of property, includes actionable claims, growing crops, grass and things form part of land agreed to be served before supply or under contract of supply, excludes money and securities. So goods excludes money and securities. Next service means that anything includes two items and excludes three items. It excludes three items, that is goods, money, securities. Includes activities relating to use of money or its conversion for consideration, who is brokering persons, intermediate persons who is receiving money and conversions, and activities facilitating of arranging transactions in securities. They are also included in services. Next here supplier means who is the person supplier. Supplier in relation to any goods or services means the person supplying the said goods and services. Who is supplying the goods or services, he is known as supplier, and he may be includes agent acting behalf of such supplier in relation to goods or services. Next who is meant by recipient means if consideration is payable for supply of goods or services. One person is supplying the goods, that is supplier. Now another person who is receiving the goods is liable to pay consideration. So if consideration is payable for supply of goods or services, he is a recipient, that is person liable to pay consideration. Or if no consideration is payable for supply of goods, then person to whom goods are delivered made available to him whose possession use of goods is given or made available. That supplier he is sending goods, for which person he is sending the goods, that person is known as recipient. If no consideration is payable for the supply of services, in case supply of services no consideration is there, and supplier whose person is given the services, means that is rendering of services, that person is known as recipient. Here recipients also includes agent acting on behalf of recipient in relation to goods and services supplied. Next vouchers means what? Vouchers means an instrument where there is an obligation to accept it consideration or part consideration for supply of goods or services or both, and where goods or services are both to be supplied or in the identities of their potential suppliers are either indicated in instruments itself or related documents. There is including terms and conditions of such instruments. This is relating to definitions. Now we will go with time of supply of goods, that is section 12. Here we will discuss mainly section 12 and section 13 in consideration with section 31. So what is there in section 12? Here there is a goods. Here section 12 means it is a CGST Act. As per CGST Act, in place of supply we discussed about section 12, that is recipient and supplier in India who is sending the supplying the goods. There it is IGST Act. Here this is CGST Act. So section 12 what is there in case of section 12, determination of supply, that is in case of goods, determination of supplies in the following situations: when the sale of goods under forward charge, if the goods are sold on forward charge, or supply of goods under reverse charge mechanism, or supply of voucher that can be used to pay for goods, or residual cases additional to value of supply of goods by way of interest or late fee or penalty for delayed payment, only for delayed payments. For these transactions we will determine the time of supply. So here first time of supply, section 31 time of supply we will deal with where along with that, so section 12 we will read with section 31. What is there in section 31? It is issuance of invoice related. So as per section 12.2, as per section 12.2, what is there in 12.2? That is the time of supply of goods that are taxable under the forward check mechanism. When there is a goods are taxable under forward mechanism, then it will be date of invoice, date of issuance of invoice by the supplier, or last date on which the invoice ought to have been issued in terms of section 31. In terms of section 31, what is there in section 31? In section 31 they will deal that if it is a goods, if it is a goods, in normal cases the goods are in momentum goods, that at that time of removal. If goods are not movement, then at the time of delivery will be taken as section 31. To the extent of invoice covers to the supply of goods, or date of receipt of payment by supplier to the extent of payment cover of supply of goods. So date of invoice, issue of invoice, or last date on which invoice to be owed to be issued as per section 31. Date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. As per section 31, invoice to be issued within within not at the time of removal or at the time of delivery. At the time of delivery for non-momentum goods, at the time of delivery for the momentum goods. No tax payable at the time of receipt of advance for supply of goods. Only in case of supply of goods, if any advance is received, we will not pay any tax. If in case it is a service, if we received any advance, we will pay the tax as per notification number 66/27/15/11/27. That is specify that, to specify that a registered person, that is registered person, excluding composite supply. If in case that composite supply for the purpose of goods he received any advance, he will pay tax. For the advances he will pay tax. Only the composition persons, normal persons will not pay the tax as per section, as per notification 66 of 2017. So that is what is there in notification, to specify that a registered person, that is registered persons exclude composition supply, should pay GST on outward supplies, GST on outward supplies of goods at the time of supply as specified in section 12.2. So that is section 12.2. What is the date of issue of time of supply, date of issuance of invoice, or last date on which date invoice ought to have been issued as per section 31, or payment date of payment, whichever is whichever is late, whichever is earlier. Thus time of supply of goods for the purpose of payment tax is the date of issuance of invoice or last date on which ought to have been issued under section 31. The relief of not paying GST and receipt of advance is available only in case of supply of goods and not for supply of services. What only for supply of goods, not for supply of services. In case of supply of services, if you received any advance, you must pay tax. Next, meaning of date of receipt of payment. Here date of receipt of payment means when the payment recorded in books of accounts of entity of that receipt of payment, or date on which the payment is credited to the entity's bank account, whichever is earlier. For example, if you received any check, if you entered in your books as of now, and the check will be realized after 3 days. So whenever you enter into the books of accounts, that the date will be, or date of payment, date of credited in account, whichever is earlier will be taking for date of receipt of payment. Next, significance to the extent of invoice or payment, that is not much important. What is there in example? A Limited entered into an agreement with B Limited to supply 100 kgs of raw materials. There is an agreement between A and B. However, A Limited supplies only 80 kgs of raw material and issues invoice for the same. So he supplied only 80 kgs. There is remaining 20 kgs is pending, and he is issued the invoices for 80 kgs. Here deemed to have been in respect of 80 kgs, that is extent is covered by the invoice. We will deemed, that is up to the 80 kgs they have issued the invoices. Therefore, provisions relating to time of supply will also be applicable to supply of 80 kgs of raw materials and not for entire 100 kgs of raw materials. So how much they provided, that much amount will be taxable. That much amount will be applicable for time of supplies. The provisions relating to time of supply of goods as contained in section 12 in case of forward charge mechanism, read with notification number 66 class 2017. What is there in 6627? 6627, that is advance amount. If you received any advance amount, taxable only in the case of services, not in the case of normal cases, and it excludes composite suppliers. Next, time limit for issuance of invoice of supply of goods under section 31. No, in terms with section 31, what we discussed in section 12, in terms with section 31, that is section 31, what is there in section 31? There is two. If you are issuing the invoice, if it is the invoice goods related to 31.1, what is there? If you are related to goods, it will deal with three sections, that is section 31.1, 31.4 and 31.7. What is there in 31.1? It is normal case. Where supply involves momentum of goods. At the time of removal, we must issue the invoice, or if supply does not involve momentum of goods, at the time of delivery we will be issue the invoice. In case of section 31.4 is related to continuous supply of goods. In case of continuous supply of goods, date on which account statement is issued or payment received, had the case may be. Here had the case may be, not whichever is earlier, only had the case may be, that is account statement issued or date of payment received. Next, as per section 31.7 is sale on approval basis, sale on approval or written basis. Here we will take for 6 months from the date of removal or date of supply of that is date of acceptance by the buyer, whichever is earlier. We will take for 66 months time from removal or date of supply accepted by the buyer, whichever is earlier will be taken for date of issuance of invoice. Here, next example. What is there in example number 1? B Limited sells goods. B Limited sells goods to C Limited on 10th June. The invoice for the same is issued on the same day. So he is issued the invoice in same day. Okay. Sell goods completed and same days issued. That means delivery termination of goods 10th June and invoice is issued in same days. That is first case, section 31.4 case. Before at the time. Okay. Next, payment for the goods is received on 20 June. That is 10th June or 20 June, whichever is earlier we will be take time of supply purpose. Time of supply of goods for the purpose of payment of tax, 10th June being the date of issuance of invoice in terms of section 31. Next, B Limited sells goods to C Limited on 10th June. Okay, 10th June. The invoice for the same is issued on 10th June, same date, and payment of goods is received on 5th June. So payment was received in 5th June. Invoice is issued on 10th June, whichever is here. As per time of supply of goods for the purpose of payment of tax is 10th June, being the date of issuance of invoice in terms of section 31. So first we will take for date of here what we will take in for supply of invoice, supply invoice momentum of goods. At the time of removal we will be take. So actual date of invoice or due date of invoice will be first we will take in, whichever is earlier. Next, time of supply of goods under forward charge mechanism as per section 12. What is the date of issuance of invoice or last date of issuance of invoice under section 31, or date on which the payment is recorded in the books of accounts of supplier, that is presently irrelevant for the purpose of payment of tax, or date on which the payment is credited to the supplier bank account, presently irrelevant for the purpose of payment of tax, whichever is earlier. Next, in case special procedures under section 148 for payment of tax in case of goods, that is GST is paid at the time of supply. If you paid the GST as specified in section 12.2a. Date of issuance of invoice, last date of issuance of invoice under section 31. Effectively, in case of goods, no GST is payable at the receipt of advance for supply of goods. So at the time of supply of goods, if you received any advance, the tax will be no tax will be liable. For example, fourth example. Fourth example. What is there in fourth example? B Limited sells goods to C Limited. B Limited sells goods to C Limited on 10th June. Okay, the invoice for the same is issued on 12th June. At the time of delivery is 10th. They are issued after the 10th. Okay, issued, and payment for the goods is received 20 June. The time of supply of goods for the purpose of payment of tax is 10th June. That is liable for issue of invoice when termination of goods, that is delivery of goods, that is 10th June. 10th June being the last date on which the invoice ought to have been issued as per terms of section 31. Next, B Limited entered into a contract with C Limited for supply of goods over a period 1 year starting from month of January. As per contract, C Limited makes payment on 10th day of each month. B Limited issues the invoice on the same day. Time of supply of goods for the purpose of payment of tax will be 10th day of each month. So there is contract between two persons, B and C Limited, for over a period of 1 year. As terms of contract, C Limited make payment on 10th day of each month. B Limited issue the invoice on the same day. So time of supply will be the same date, that is 10th day of May each month. Next, B Limited send goods to C Limited for sale on approval basis on 6th January. If it in the case of sale on approval basis, that is section 31(7) will be applicable. In before case, section 31(4) will be applicable when there is a continuous supply of goods. When continuous supply of goods, that is date on which account statement is issued or payment is received, as the case may be applicable. Date of payment will be 10th day. So we had taken the time of supply of 10th day. In now case, that is sale on approval basis, section 31(7) will be deal. Section 31(7), what is the time limit? 6 months from the date of removal or date of supply, that is acceptance by the buyer, whichever is earlier. Here C Limited sale on approval on 10th January and C Limited approvals the goods on 15th August. From 10th January to 6 months means 10th February, 11th February, February, March, April, May, June, July. July will be the 10th July will be the within 6 months. So before 6 months he must accept. Here the person approves 15th August. B Limited should issue the invoice on 10th July. He must issue the invoice in 10th July after the 6 months. As the supply gets fluctuated after 6 months from the date of removal. Time of supply of goods for the purpose of payment of tax is 10th July, being last date on which invoice ought to have been issued in terms of section 31. Now, when excess payment up to 1000 rupees, option to making invoice, date of issuance of supply, this is in terms of section 12 to the for the payment of for payment up to 1000 rupees received in excess of value of goods invoiced, the supplier can choose the date of invoice issued in respect of such excess amount of the time of supply of goods for such excess value. Since with effect from 15/11/2017, GST on supply of goods is payable only on basis of issuance of invoice. This provision is practically irrelevant for supply of goods. Next, if neither the date of invoice nor the date of payment is available, when there is no details about the date of invoice and date of payment is available, then the time of supply is determined in terms of residual provisions under section 12(5). We will discuss in 5th point. Time of supply in case of goods under reverse charge mechanism. That is section 12(3) will be discussed. That is here there will be 3 dates. What is the dates? Date on which goods are received or date on which payment is made to the supplier. Here payment means what is these books of accounts, recipient books of recorded in recipient books are debited in our bank account, whichever is earlier will be taken, and after the date of from date of invoice to 30 days, that is date immediately following 30 days from the date of issuance of invoice. 31st date will be the date time of supply, whichever is earlier will be taken. So 3 dates will be date on which goods are received, or date on which payment is made to supplier, or 31st day from the date of invoice, whichever is earlier will be considered for the time of supply in case of in case of goods sent for a reverse charge mechanism. So it is not possible to determine the time of supply by using these parameters. Then time of supply will be the date of entry of the books in the entry of goods in the books of accounts of the recipient supplier. When we do not have the above information, then we will go with date of entry goods in the books of accounts entered in the recipient books, then it will be treated as time of supply. Next, the relief is not paying at the time of recipient. Here in case of reverse charge mechanism, if received any advance amount, we must pay the tax. In case of normal case, goods received for goods selling, if received any advance amount, we will not pay any tax. But in case of reverse charge mechanism, if you received any amount of advance, you must pay the tax. That is the here the relief is not paying GST at the time of receipt of advance is available only in case of supply of goods, tax on which is payable under forward charge, only forward charge mechanism. In case reverse charge, GST is payable at the time of payment if payment recorded or made before receipt of goods, that is advance payments. If you received any advances in case of reverse charge mechanism, you should pay the tax amount. Next example, B Limited sells goods to C Limited on 4th June. Okay, sell goods on 4th June. The goods are taxable under reverse charge mechanism. So B is sending the goods to C Limited 4th June and it is liable for reverse charge mechanism. Next, invoice for the same is issued on 4th June. Invoice for the same issued on 4th June, that is one was claimed, that is invoice is 4th June. From 4th June to 30 days we will calculate. For 30 days it may become 6 days, August 6th or 7th will become July. Next, books C Limited recorded payment of the books on 30 June, 6th July or 30 June, whichever is earlier. 30 June will become, and the same is debited from the bank account limited on C Limited on 2nd July, that is 30 June or 2nd July, whichever is earlier will be taking. Next, time of supply of the goods is 12th June, that is 12th June. When the C Limited has received the goods on 12th June, that is date of termination of or delivery of the goods, date of received goods. Here in case of reverse charge mechanism, we will see the 3 points, that is date on which goods is received, that is 12th June, or date on which payment is made, that is 30 June or 2nd July. 30 June will be considered, and time of supply for goods in is June, that is 4th June to 30 days means it may become 30 days, 31st day from the date of invoice, it may become 30 July, it may become July. So 12th June will be the date of supply, earliest of 3 stipulated dates: date of receipt of goods, date of payment, and date of immediately following 30 days of issuance of invoice. Next, B Limited sell goods to C Limited on 4th June. The goods are taxable under reverse charge mechanism. Okay, invoice for the same is issued on 4th June. Invoice is issued from 4th June to 30 days means I think 34th to 26 plus 4th July or 5th July will become. Next, C Limited received the goods on 6th July, 4th or 5th July, 31st, 5th July it will become for 31st day, and 6th July is received goods, date of which goods received or 31st day means whichever is earlier we will take. 5th will be considered, and another condition will be date of payment. When will be received date of payment? If the payment is before 5th, it will be considered. Here payment will be created 21st July and debited 31st July, so it will not consider. So time of supply the goods is 5th July, being the earliest of the 3 stipulated dates, namely date of receipt of goods, date of payment of, and date of immediately following the 3 days. Thumb rule for the reverse charge mechanism will be three requisitions, that is date of receipt of goods, date of payment, or date of immediately following the 30 days of issuance of invoice. Next example, B Limited sell goods to C Limited on 4th June. means from 4th June to 30 days means it will become 5th July. Next, the goods are taxable under reverse charge mechanism. Invoice for the same is issued on 4th June. Invoice issued same days. So 4th June or 5th July, whichever is earlier means 4th June, and credit will be seeing C Limited receive the goods on 27th June. 27th June the goods was received 27th June. 27th June means date of receipt of date on which goods received will be 27 June or 5th July, whichever is earlier 27 June. And next, record payment in books of accounts 10th June. 10th June or 27th June, whichever is earlier. 10th June will be time of supply. So the same is debited from the bank account. Time of supply of the goods is 10th June. That is 3 among 3, that is earliest. Receipt of goods is 10th June. Date of payment will be 10th June. Receipt of goods will be 27th, and immediately passing 30 days will be 5th July. Next, time of supply of goods under reverse charge mechanism. Time of supply in case of reverse charge mechanism, we will see the 3 among. What is the 3 among? Date on which the goods are received, and date on which the payment recorded in the books of accounts of recipient of goods, or date on which payment is debited from the bank account of the recipient of goods, or 31st day from the date of issuance of invoice by the supplier, whichever is earlier will be considered in case of time of supply in reverse charge mechanism as per section 12(3). Next, if it is not possible to determine the time of supply through above parameter, then time of supply will be date on which goods are recorded in the books of accounts of the recipient of supply. So if we do not have above information, that is the date of payment we do not have, date of receipt of goods we do not have, and date of invoice we do not have. If any information is not there, then we will go with the books date of recorded books in the recipient supply. Next, time of supply of vouchers exchangeable for goods as per section 12(4). Section 12(4) means in case of vouchers, if the voucher is identifiable voucher at the time of issuance of voucher, if non-identifiable voucher, then at the time of redemption of voucher will be considered. So we will consider the 2 times. If the voucher will be clearly identifiable, then at the time of issuance of voucher will be considered. If we do not know, that is non-identifiable voucher, then at the time of redemption of voucher will be considered. This is the case of vouchers. That is, for example, there are given food pass, shirt coupons. Food pass or shirt coupons. Any goods items can be purchased. Any goods items purchased from the food pass. If you purchase any goods from this food pass, supply is not identifiable at the time of issuance of voucher. If supply is not, ante here they are selling any food you can purchase. They don't know which food we purchase. We also don't know which food we can eat at the time of eating. So we do not identifiable at the time of issuance of voucher. Then when we go to the hotel and redeem that voucher, then it will be taking the time of supply, date of redemption of voucher. Next, only shirts can be purchased from the shirt coupon. If you have one coupon, they are telling like, if you want to redeem this voucher, you must purchase one shirt only. They know you must purchase the shirt. So it is identifiable at the time of issuance. They know you will purchase the shirt. So at the time of issuance of voucher will be time of supply. This is section 12(4) will be discussed. Example: A Limited sell goods coupon to B Limited. The company gives these coupons to its employees. They are giving coupons to their employees as part of agreed purchase. The coupons can be redeemed for purchase of any item of food. Any item means they don't know the employees which food they may eat. This is non-identifiable. So when the employees eat the food at the time of eating which they redeem the voucher, that redemption date will be the time of supply. So as a supply against which coupon will be redeemed is not known, and the date of sale of coupons, the time of supply of coupons will be the date on which the employees redeem its against food provision items of each choice. Next, with each purchase of large pizza during the Christmas week from Perfect Pizza, one can buy a voucher of 20 rupees which will be redeemed till 5th January for small pizza. So if you purchase one big pizza, they are giving voucher for small pizza. If you want to redeem, you must take the pizza only. They know, if they know it is clearly identifiable. So at the time of issuance only it will be time of supply. Next, time of supply in some time of supply of goods in residual cases, that is section 12(5). In case of time of supply which is not assignable as per subsections and above subsections, that is vouchers or 12(3) RCM or normal cases, if you not find out the time of supply, then we will go with section 12 subsection 5. Here what will be there, based on applicable in case of evasion of GST by taxable persons, periodical returns will be considered. Due date of filing returns will be considered, that is due date of filing of returns. Due date of filing of returns, time of supply will be where the periodical returns is to be filed. Where the means, if he is a registered person, then he must file the GST 3B returns on 20 of following month. So 20 is the due date, 20 is the time of supply. If you are not a registered person, then date on which GST is paid. If you paid the GST, then that is the time of supply. This is section 12(5). Next, section 12(6). In section 12(6), in case in addition to value of the firm, the interest or late fees for delay for payment of consideration. If you are not paid the consideration, if you paying the late fee or interest, that additional consideration is received, that is an receipt basis. Here the time of supply will be on receipt basis. Whenever the amount received, that if you amount is received, that is interest or late fee or penalty, whatever the consideration, if you received, then that will be considered as and the date of receipt, will be time of supply. Next, here one example, A Limited sold goods to B Limited on 6th June with a condition that interest at the rate of 2% per month will be charged if B Limited fails to make payment within 15 days of delivery of goods. What is their condition? They must pay the amount within time. If he has not paid the amount, he will be chargeable to interest at the rate of 12%. Okay, goods were delivered and also the invoice was issued on 6th June. B Limited paid the consideration for goods on 6th July along with applicable interest. Here 6th June to 15 days means 21st June. If he has not paid the within 15 days, he will liable for interest, and he has paid the interest along with interest on 6th July. So receipt of interest on 6th July. So 6th July will be the time of supply for that interest portion. Time of supply for goods sold is the date of issuance of invoice, that is 6th June, and time of supply for addition amount in value by way of interest is that date when such addition is value is received by A Limited is 6th July. That is in portion of interest portion only 6th July will be considered. Next, the provisions relating to time of supply of goods contained in section 12 are summarized in the following diagrams. So here they are for summarizing the diagrams. What is the summarizing? In case of forward, in case of reverse charge, in case of exchangeable vouchers are there. In case of forward, there is in case of forward, what is their date of issuance or due date of issue of tax invoice under section 31 will be considered. Next, date of recording the payment in the books of accounts of supplier or date of which payment is credited in the bank account of supplier, whichever is earlier will be considered. Now GST at the time of receipt of advance for supply of goods, GST to be paid on date of issuance or due date of issuance of tax invoice under section 31. Here in case of goods there is no GST for the goods advance amount, there is no GST. Only for regular persons. If he is in composition person, he will liable to pay GST. Next, time of supply goods under reverse charge mechanism. Date of receipt of goods. Date of receipt of goods or date of recording the payment in the books of accounts of the recipient of goods or date of which payment he is debited from bank account of the recipient of goods. 31st day from the date of supply of invoice, whichever is earlier. If above unassailable, then time of supply is equal to date of entry of goods in the books of recipient of goods will be considered. Next, time of supply of vouchers exchangeable for goods. If the vouchers will be identifiable that at the time of a sale, at the time of issue of voucher. If you cannot identifiable the voucher, next that the date of redemption will be considered. Next, residual provision will time of supply where the periodical returns is filed. That is, if you are a registered person, you must file the periodical return in due dates. That is the due date, that is the time of supply. If you are not a registered person, if you have not pay, you have not filed the any returns, so if you paying the tax, that time is the time of supply. Next, addition in value by way of interest, late fee, penalty for delay payment of consideration for goods. Time of supply will be date on which supplier receives such addition in value, that is interest, penalty, delay for payment of consideration for goods. That is section 12 will be completed. Now section 13, what is there in section 13? Section 13 will be here there is section 12 deals with about the goods. Section 13 deals with the about the services. Here services, supply of services under forward charge mechanism, supply of services under reverse charge mechanism, supply of vouchers that can be used to pay for services are residual provisions, or in addition to value of supply services by way of interest or late fee or penalty or for delayed payment, all will be considered. Here also same section 13 to read with section 31. Section 31, here we will discuss about services related sections 13 subsection 2, 13 subsection 5, 13 subsection 6. So go through the now in provisions. What is there in provisions? First of all, in case of forward mechanism, time of supply in case of forward mechanism, what is there? Date of issue, date of invoice or date of receipt of payment. Date of invoice or date of payment, whichever is earlier will be considered if the invoice is issued within times prescribed under section 31. Under section 31, what is the times prescribed in section 31? If it is a normal case, within 30 days will be completion. From the date of completion, within 30 days he must issue the invoice. Next, date of provisions of services or date of receipt of payment. Date of provisions of services or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier, if invoice is not issued within times prescribed under section 31. So if the invoice is issued within 30 days from the date of completion, then date of issuance of invoice or date of receipt of payment will be considered, whichever is earlier. If date of invoice is not issued within the time date as specified in section 31, date of provisions of service, that is completion of service, or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier, will be considered. Next, if above two methods A and B is not applicable, then time of supply will be the date on which the recipient of service shows a receipt of in his books will be considered. Here date of receipt of payment will be, payment is recorded in the books of accounts of the entity that receive the payment, or date on which the payment is credited to the entity's bank account, whichever is earlier. Next, significant to the extent of payments cover services. It will not cover time of supply of services under forward check mechanism. What is there? First, is the invoice issued within 30 days? If the invoice is issued within 30 days, then time of supply will be date of issuance of invoice or date of which payment is recorded in the books of accounts of supplier, whichever is earlier will be considered. If invoice is not issued within 30 days, within time limit specified in section 31, then provisions of services will be considered. That is date of provisions of services or date on which the payment is recorded in the books of account of supplier, or date on which the payment is credited to the supplier's bank account, whichever is earlier will be considered. If the supply cannot be determined by both of the above, then date of recipient of service in the books of accounts of a recipient will be considered. Next, time limit for issuance of invoice for supply of services under section 31. What is there in section 31? Here section 31 will deal with three sections, that is section 31 2, 31 5, 31 6. 31 2 will be in normal cases. Here we will discuss that if the person will be banking sector or insurance sector, then time will be 45 days from the date of completion. From date of completion, it will be 45 days. In normal cases, it will be 30 days. The tax invoice need to be issued either before the provisions, before or within 30 days, if this is normal cases. In case banking, insurance companies, banking companies, financial institutions including NBFC, their time will be 45 days from the date of supply of service. From the date of supply of services is section 31 2 will be considered. Next here in case of insurance companies, banking companies, financial institutions including NBFCs, telecom companies, notified supplier service making taxable supplies between distinct person as specified in section 25. Invoice may be issued before or at the time of recording of such supply in the books of accounts or before expiry of quarter during the which supply was made. Next, in case of continuous supply, section 31(5) will be considered. 31 will be considered. Here there will be three conditions will be satisfied. What is these three conditions? First, due date of installments ascertainable. If you ascertain the date of installment date, if you ascertain the installment date, then such due date will be considered. Then that due date will be considered. Or if you not ascertainable that installment, then from contact as and when payment is received. If you are not going through it, payment is linked to the completion of any event. Payment is linked with completion of event, then as and when the event is completed, it will be considered. Here in case of continuous supply, the invoice should be issued either on or before the due date of payment, or before at the time of when the supply of services receive the payment. If it is a payment, if due date of payment is not known, if you know the payment due date, then that is on or before the due date. If you don't know the due date of payment, then it will be services on supplier of services receive the payment. Next, on or before the date of completion. If you don't linked with the completion, payment is linked with the completion. Here 3 will be considered. If you know the installment ascertainable, then contact on such due date installment. If you don't ascertainable, if you don't know the payment not known, then it will be as and when payment is received. If completion is linked with the payment, then that contract is completed, then will be considered as time of supply. What is continuous supply means? Continuous supply of service are provided, are agreed to be provided. If you agreed or provided continuously or on recurrent basis under a contract for a period exceeding 3 months. It must be exceeding 3 months with a periodic payment obligation and includes a supply of service as the government may notify. We will discuss more on tax invoice credit notes related. Next, in case of cessation, section 31(6) will be considered. Section 31 will be considered. Here where there is a cessation is happened, immediately upon cessation, the up to the portion which the work is completed and amount is received, that portion time of supply will be date of cessation. Date of cessation means if any contract is stopped in middle. For example, one movie, that person is Vishwakshan he stopped with the movie of with Allu Arjun producer. That contact, when the contact is cessation, and from the date it will be considered for time of supply as per section 31(6). Here we have discussed 3 sections, that is 31(2), 31(5), 31(6). 31(2) will be normal case, 31(5) will be continuous supply, 31(6) will be cessation supply. Next, here examples. What is there in examples? A Limited provides to B Limited on 10th June. So here services means section 13 will be considered. Okay. 10th June, A Limited issued the invoice of the services on 15th July. So provide services on 10th June and invoice is issued on 15th June and payment is received in bank account of A Limited on 20 June and recorded in the books of account on 30 June. So it is normal case. Services was provided on 10th June, invoice issued on 15th June. Payment is received bank 20 June and recorded in the books of will be 30 June. So date of receipt of payment is 20 June, being the earlier. Here what will be considered? Due date of, what is the due date and date of payment, whichever is earlier will be considered. Here date of payment, if the invoice is issued within time, so invoice will be issued within time. In normal cases, that is 30 days will be considered. So date of receipt of payment will be 20 June, whichever is earlier of two stipulated. What is the two stipulated? Date on which the payment is recorded in the books of account of supplier, and date on which the payment is credited to the supplier bank account. That is receipt of payment considered on 20 June. Next, since invoice is issued within 30 days, if the 31 is satisfied, 31 will be satisfied, that is within 30 days. If the invoice is issued within 30 days, then we will consider that that is issued within 30 days from the date of supply of services. Time of supply will be 15th June, that is earlier of two, that is date of issuance of invoice and date of receipt of payment. Date of issuance of invoice or date of payment, whichever is earlier, will be considered. If invoice is not issued within time, date of completion or date of payment will be considered. For example, 14th example, A Limited provides services of to B Limited on 10th June. That is completion of services on 10th June. A Limited issues invoice from the services on 7th July. 10th June to 30 days means within 30 days he has issued the invoice. Payment is received in the bank account of A Limited 20 June and recorded in the books of accounts 30 June. 20 June will be considered for receipt of payment. Here the since invoice is issued within 30 days, that is 10th June to 30 days means it may become 9th or 8th July. So they are issued within 30 days. Then time of supply will be date of issuance of invoice or date of payment. Date of issuance of invoice or date of payment. Date of issuance of invoice will be 7th July and date of payment will be 20 June. 20 June will be time of supply. Next, A Limited provides services to B Limited on 10th June. A Limited issues the invoices for services on 31st to 15th July, that is after the 30 days. After 30 days, here invoice is not issued within time. Then we will consider date of completion of service or date of payment, whichever is earlier. That is date of completion will be 10th June or payment is received in bank account 20 June and recorded in the books of 30 June. 20 June will be considered, that is 10th June or 20 June, whichever is earlier. Here invoice is not issued within 30 days of provisions of service. Therefore time of supply will be is 10th June, being the earlier of two stipulated dates, namely date of provision of service and date of receipt of payment. Next, excess payment up to 1000, option of taking invoice at date of invoice. Here what is this 1000 panchayat? Up to 1000 received in excess of invoice, in excess of invoice in case of services covered under section forward charge mechanism. Then time of supply will be date of invoice are determined as per section 13.2. That is supplier has an option to choose if the amount is received excess of 1000 rupees. Then the time of supply will be date of invoice are determined as per section 13.2. He will be option for the supplier. What is there in section 13.2? That is he may go with 60 days or more, that one there. Next, here one example, a telephone company receives 5000 against invoice of 4800. Invoice amount will be 4800, company was received 5000, so excess amount of 200 rupees can be adjusted against the next invoice. They are adjusted next invoice. Here the company has option to take the date of next invoice at the time of supply of service in relation to the amount of 200 received in excess against the earlier invoice. So 4800 will be time of supply for the same date when the service is provided and date of invoice. At about that excess of 2000 rupees amount will be time of supply will be next month. If they issued the invoice within time limits. Next, time of supply of services taxable under reverse charge mechanism, that is section 13.3. Here we will consider two dates, that is date of payment or data immediately following the 16th day since issue of invoice, that is 61st day from the date of invoice. 13 year section 13.3 will be time of supply in case of RCM, reverse charge mechanism. Date of issuance of payment, date of on which payment is made to supplier. In reverse charge mechanism, when the recipient is made to supplier and 61st day from the date of invoice. When the date of invoice is issued, from after that 61st day will be considered the time of supply. 61st day or date of issuance of date of payment, whichever is earlier will be considered for time of supply. Next, date of payment will be that amount entity receive the service, recipient of service, or data on which payment is debited from the entity's bank account, whichever is earlier will be considered. Here debited will be considered. Next, import of service between associated enterprises, that is in starting only we will discuss associated enterprises means as per section 92A of Income Tax Act. 92A of Income Tax Act, there is some persons, there are some list for associated enterprises. For that associated enterprises, time of supply will be considered as where in case of supply of services received between associated enterprises, where supplier is outside India. If supplier is outside India and recipient is inside India, then time of supply will be date of entry in the books of recipient or date of payment or to the supplier, whichever is earlier will be considered. Here the supplier will be outside India and recipient is in inside India, and they are associated enterprises, and then there will be time of supply will be date of payment or date of entry in the books of accounts of recipient, whichever is earlier will be considered. For example, A Limited provides services to B Limited on 10th June. He has provided the services. The services are taxable under reverse charge mechanism. So reverse charge mechanism and service, it will be considered for section 13.2. Section 13.3 will be considered. Okay, in section 13.3, what is there? Date of payment are 61st day from the date of issuance of invoice. So 10th June provides services. From 10th June to 60 days we will consider first of all, and services are taxable under reverse charge mechanism. A Limited issued the invoice for the services on 15th June means within 60 days he has issued the invoice. Payment is debited from the bank account on B Limited on 20 June and recorded in the books of account on 30 June. 20 June will be considered, and here the time of supply of services is for the 20 June being the earliest of the three stipulated dates, that is date on which payment is recorded in the books of recipient and date on which payment is debited from the bank account of recipient of service, and date immediately following the 60 day since issuance of invoice. From issuance of invoice, when the date is issued 15th June, from 15th June to 60 days after 61st day will be considered as time of supply or date of payment made to the supplier, whichever is earlier will be considered. Next, A Limited provides services to B Limited on 10th June. Okay, services completed. The services are taxable under reverse charge mechanism. So this is a service and taxable under reverse charge mechanism. Section 13.3 will be applicable. 13.3, time of supply will be date on which payment is made to the supplier or 61st day from the date of issuance of invoice. Okay, date of issuance of invoice will be 15th June. Okay, from 15th June to 60 days will be considered 61st day or payment, date of payment of to the supplier, whichever is earlier will be considered. Here 15th June to 60 days means maybe it was 15th July and July after August. So it may be 15th August will be considered for 61st day. Debit from bank account will be 20 September and recorded in the books 15th September. So 15th or 15th will be considered for payment. And 61st day will be 15th August, whichever is earlier will be 15th August. That is date on which the date immediately following the 60-day issuance of invoice. Next, A Incorporation, a foreign company, and B Limited is an Indian company or associated enterprise. A provides technical services to B. So A is providing the technical services to B Limited. That is supplier will be A Incorporation. B Limited will be Indian company, that is recipient. Here place of supply will be location of recipient will be considered, that is place of supply is India and supplier is outside India. Next, a wide an email dated June 4th, and A Incorporation informs B Limited the cost of technical services provided to it. B Limited transfer the payment to A Incorporation on 12th June. So they are transferring the amount on 12th August. So they are telling only the amount debited, amount sending. There is no related information about the date of entry in the books of accounts of recipient. Only date of payment is enter. So date of entry, if there is no about the entry of date of entry in the books of recipient, or then we will choose for date of payment is time of supply. So time of supply for services is 12th August, being the date of payment has there is no prior entry of the amount in the books of accounts of B Limited. Next, time of supply under reverse charge mechanism. One summary view. What is first is there date on which the payment is recorded in the books of account of recipient services in recipient books of services, or date on which the payment is debited from the bank account of recipient services, recorded or debited from the recipient account, or 61st day from the date of issuance of invoice by the supplier, whichever is earlier will be considered. If it is not possible to determine the time of supply through above parameters, then time of supply will be the date on which the entry in the books of accounts of the recipient services will be considered. Next, time of supply in case of import of service from the associated enterprise. If it is the associated enterprises, supply of associated enterprises located in outside India, then date of entry of service in the books of accounts of recipient of supply, who is receiving the person. Recipient person is Indian person. If they entered in the books of accounts, or date of payment of service, whichever is earlier, will be considered for time of supply. Next, time of supply of vouchers exchangeable for services. Here also same we will consider for same as if the vouchers are identifiable, then at the time of issuance of voucher will be considered. If vouchers are not identifiable, then at the time of redemption will be considered. Next, A Limited, a company providing hospitality services, enter into agreement with B Limited, by which B Limited markets A Limited hotel rooms and sells coupons, vouchers redeemable for discounts against stay in the hotel. So if any person receives that voucher, they already know, it clearly identifiable. What can he do for that voucher? He may take that for the staying purpose only. So on the date of issuance of voucher only, it is time of supply. Other supply against which the voucher will be redeemable is identifiable. We know it is clearly identifiable. What the person who is receiving the voucher, he must utilize for staying the room only. He cannot do any other thing. So time of supply of voucher will be date on its date of issue. Next, section 13.5. Section 13.5 will be when there is no above sections are not providing the data, that is residual classes. If you are not ascertainable from the above sections, then it will be date on which the periodical return for period is required to be filed. That is, if he is a registered person, he is filing the returns, that is the due date will be considered for time of supply. If he is not a registered person, then date on which the GST is paid, that is considered as time of supply. Next, time of supply in case of enhancement of value on account of interest, late fee for delayed payment of consideration, that is section 13.6. in this is also the receipt basis will be considered. So that all summarized. Section 13 will be summarized here. What is there summarized? Time of supply of services under forward mechanism. If it is a forward mechanism, here we will be see first what we will see: date of issuance of tax invoice, date of recording the payment in books of account of the supplier, or date on which the payment is credited in the bank account of the supplier, whichever is earlier. In case of forward mechanism, we will talk about supplier. In case of reverse charge mechanism, we will consider as recipients, maximum recipient books. Or if you go for any other purpose, so first we will see time of supply of services under forward charge when invoice is not issued within time specified under section 31. If you issue the invoice within time limit, then first one, that is date of issuance of invoice or date of recording books of payment of books of a supplier or date on which credit, whichever is earlier, will be considered. If invoice is not issued within time, then date of service, date of provisions of service or date of recording of payment of books of accounts or date on which the payment is credited to the bank account, whichever is earlier, will be considered. Next, in case of reverse charge mechanism, here talking about recipient person, that is date of recording of payment in the books of account of the recipient of service, date on which the payment is debited for the bank account for the recipient of service, and 61st day from the date of supplier invoice, whichever is earlier. In case of vouchers, if it is a identifiable voucher at the time of issuance, if it is not identifiable, then date of redemption will be considered. If you are not ascertainable from the above date, if it is not ascertainable from the above date, recipient books of account, date and receipt of service in the books of account of the recipient of supply will be considered. Next, residual provisions. If you are not calculating, if you are not come above dates, then we will go with date when the periodical returns is filed due date on such returns, or in case of other cases, date on which the tax is paid. In case of any interest, late fee, penalty for delayed payment of consideration of service, then time of supply will be on receipt basis. Receipt basis will be considered. Next, section 14. What is there in section 14? This section 14 will deal with when there is a rate was changed. When there is a rate was changed, then the date of receipt of payment. Here Mr. A, an interior decorator, designed and renovated the office of XYZ in June. So he is work on June. The invoice is to be raised after approval of the work. In meantime, the rate of tax is changed on 5th July. So work was done on June. Invoice is pending. Work was completed before rate change. Work was completed before rate change. Work was completed. So now the pending is date of invoice or date of payment is pending. Okay, invoice is raised and payment is made later in July. So both was in after that. Then here the time of supply is after the change in rate of tax will be considered. So here we will clearly understand what is this change in rate of tax. That is issuance of invoice, supply of goods or service, receipt of payments. So when any two events before change in rate of tax, then old rate will be considered. Any two events after change, that is rate of tax, will be new rate. So what is this? If the date of completion is before change of rate, we will consider date of invoice or date of payment, whichever is earlier. Or if the rate is changed after the rate of change, we are issuing the date of invoice or date of payment. Completion is before, but before the rate was issued, we are issued the date of invoice and date of payment before rate. Then date of issuance of date of payment, whichever is earlier, will be considered. Next, if either the date of invoice or date of payment before change in rate of and other changes after the rate, then we will consider date of invoice or date of payment, whichever is later, will be considered. That new rate will be applicable. For example number 22. A Limited makes customs made precision tools for which it took full advance with the purchase order. Okay, full advance was taken, and such order is received on 13th April and full amount is paid with the order. Okay, that is payment was received on same date of payment, 13th April. The tool are manufactured and delivered on 22nd May, that is date of completion. Invoice is also issued on the same day, that is date of invoice in 22nd May. So date of payment will be 13th April and date of invoice will be 22nd May. Next, in meantime, rate of tax was increased on tool of this description from 20 May. So the rate was increased 20 May. Work was completed after the issuance of invoice, after the issuance of rate changed. So we will consider the rate will be on date of 20 May will be considered. Here increased rate of tax will be applicable as the goods are supplied and issued after the rate of 20 May. Next, date of credit of payment in bank account to be considered as date of receipt of payment. If the credit taken place after, this is one important point. This is one important point, that is date of crediting of payment. Date of crediting of payment in bank account to the B means date of receipt of payment. If such crediting take place after 4 working days from the change of rate, if the rate was changed, amount is pending. For example, check was issued on 1st December. Check was issued on 1st December, and rate was changed in 6th December. If the payment, if the check was realized within 4 days, or after 4 days, if the issued within 4 days, then the credited will be treated as 1st December. If the amount is realized after 4 days, that credit will be taken on date of crediting. Here payment entered in the books of account, change in rate of tax after 4 working days. After 4 working days, payment credited in bank account, date of receipt of payment is equal to date of credit of payment in bank account. So after that we will consider for 4 days. That is, if the rate is changed in 5th December, from 5th December to 4 days, 9th December, if the amount is realized within 9th, then date will be considered before rate. If the amount is realized after 9th, then the rate will be considered after the change. Next, rate of tax is changed on 10th July. Here example, 10th July, receipt of payment is recorded in books of accounts of supplier on 8th July. So rate change 10th July, receipt recorded in 8th July, that is check was received in 8th July. The payment is credited in the supplier bank account on 15th July. That is after the 10th, from 10th to 4 days, within 4 days will be realized. If the amount is not realized within 4 days, then realized date will be considered. If the amount is realized in 15th July, the date will be considered as 15th July. If the amount is realized in 13th July, the amount will be considered will be 8th July. So new old rate will be applicable. In this case, new rate will be considered.